Consultants in Cleaning, LLC is pleased to announce their new training DVD entitled Customer Relations, Training for Supervisors and Cleaning Techs. This DVD is a must for your training library. Dick Ollek, CBSE, defines customer relations and all that it entails, and then guides the participants to do exercises giving them a sound understanding of the part they have in satisfying the customer. Dick conducts the session as if he were in the room with the participants. So go to www.consultantsincleaning.com and click on the DVD section to order. We'll both be glad you did. Welcome to Tripodcast, episode 228. It's Monday, July 9th. And how are your sales going? Do you have a lot of proposals out there but not getting them closed? Dick Ollek asks, have you asked for the order? In this Tripodcast, he talks about how to turn questions into closings. Let's listen in.
In this session, I want to talk a little bit about asking for the order. You know, one of the most overlooked steps in the process that we have in presenting a proposal, not a bid by the way, but a proposal for cleaning, is we forget to ask for the order. We deliver the proposal, it all looks nice, and we stop. And we say, give us a call when you're ready. I realize you probably don't say it like that, but that's kind of the way we leave it with the customer. I had a gentleman work for me for, way back in the olden days when I was first starting out in the contract cleaning business. Nicest man in the world, and he and I are still friends to this day, even though I fired him at one time. But he would go out and he would make more contacts than you could imagine, and he would deliver proposals. And he did a nice job of that. He would come back to my office and I'd say, Don, what's the status of that? Oh, I know they're going to buy. I just know they're going to buy. Well, why did they give you a date or what? Well, they liked me. You know, they smiled all the way through and we had some great conversation. They like to hunt and fish like I like to hunt and fish, and you know, they like Fords like I do, and this goes on and on and on, and gosh, I let him be with me for longer than he should have been. But you know, about 8, 9, 10 months into the process, we hadn't closed anything. We had all these people that liked Don, but nobody was buying from him. And so before that actually, I started going out on him. I was in the learning process as well, because I was waiting too long to take action on my own. But I started going out with him on the presentations, and he would just stop, when it was all over. They liked him, and I would say, we'd like to begin service for you. When may we begin? And sometimes we made a deal, and Don would walk out of there with me. He said, boy, you're pretty pushy. And I said, well, why do we want to make a presentation to a prospect and then I'd ask them to do the work? I'm not in the paper business. I don't like to be just putting out paper on the street. Some of it I'd like to close. So I thought it would be interesting to maybe talk a little bit today about some closing questions, closing answers that we could be talking about. The prospect says to you, when do you invoice? My answer is, when would you like to be invoiced? Now, those of you that know me know that I invoice in advance and always recommend that we invoice in advance. But in reality, I did have some customers, very few, but I had some customers who said to me, I will not accept an invoice unless it's the end of the month, after the service has been performed. Now, do you think that I said, well, I won't clean your facility because I only invoice on the first? Absolutely not. My question was, when do you like to be invoiced? And if they said, I only want to be invoiced at the end of the month, that's when we invoiced. I would tell them, we normally invoice the first of the month, but when would you like to be invoiced? And if they say, well, it's got to be the 15th of the last day, fine with me. I was never going to let something like that stand in the way of closing the deal. If we invoice on the day that you want us to invoice, Mr. Prospect, can we begin service? That's another closing question. So They've asked what day we invoice. I've agreed to invoice on the day they want to invoice. Now, the next question is, if we invoice on that day, may we begin service? And then it goes on from there. Hopefully they'll say yes, but sometimes they aren't. But what you've done is you've moved one step closer to closing the deal. Do you usually start on a weekend? Well, we're going to start when you want us to start. You want us to start on Tuesday night? In other words, if we start Tuesday night, can we begin this coming Tuesday? Or how about 4 weeks from this Tuesday? When would you like us to begin? Now you've asked another question. At this point, they're a little bit interested because they're starting to ask these questions. But when would you like us to begin? We start all over the place. And you have an opportunity to close the sale if they say, well, I want you to start on a weekend because it'd be easier. Good. Can we then begin on the weekend? Let's look at the calendar here, and we'll establish a weekend. Now that's another closing question. Now if they say, yep, let's look at the calendar, you know you're almost there. If they say, well, I just was curious. Another one is, and I've had this asked many times, how much room are you going to need for your supplies and equipment? That's a very good question, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect. Why don't we walk down to the closet where the current contractor is storing their equipment, and then we can take a look at that. You understand, I already know that. But again, as we're walking down there, I'm having the opportunity to ask more questions and get closer to closing the deal. Let's go on down there. So now we're at the closet, and my answer is this is exactly the size we need. I don't care if it's 3 by 3 or 30 by 30. That's the size I need. So that'll work. Shall we go back to your office and we'll just pick that starting date that we were talking about before? You see, you have to constantly be asking for the order. Because if you're just answering their questions and not answering it back with a question of when can we start, all you've done is delivered some paper. And you are then with everybody else in there just laying it on the desk and hoping that you're the one they pick. So these are just some quick ways to answer questions that the customer may have. But however you handle the situation, always remember, you have to ask for the order.
You've been listening to a Tripodcast, short video and audio presentation about important topics in our industry. If you're a current subscriber to the Tripodcast, thank you. We appreciate it. If you're not yet a subscriber, please check it out. It's free and it's easy. Come to www.tripodcast.com, enter your email address on the right-hand column, and click subscribe. We'll send you out a new Tripodcast every Monday morning.